Modding has got to be one of the coolest things we can actually do with a video game, whether it's the ability to play as another character, the addition of a new map, fixing bugs the original devs couldn't, or adding an entirely new game mechanic that reshapes the entire play experience. Mods are kind of the peak of fan creativity, right? But every now and then, you just stumble across something like TF2 Gold Rush, and you're just harshly reminded that this isn't always the case. For many reasons that I just don't have the time to get into yet again, the TF2 community is hyper obsessed with the idea of bringing back the game to some previous version, way before the Meet Your Match update. And look, I get it, while I don't personally feel that way about TF2, if I could revert Overwatch to the state the game was in, like back in late 2017 and early 2018, I would do it instantly. But we don't have access to Overwatch's code. Team Fortress 2, on the other hand, gives you access to all of its files by default. Its code leaked a bunch of times before, and in February of this year, they officially released the SDK allowing mods to be legally made and put on Steam. For a long time before this, TF2 source mod had to exist in a really weird spot. While Half-Life mods have basically been allowed on Steam forever and are also just really easy to install manually, TF2 is a live service game, so these mods need players to be able to install updates properly as well as hosting game servers. They generally require a lot more effort to keep alive after release, so because of that, you'll probably never hear about a TF2 mod that doesn't have an entire dev team behind it. And because a lot of these mods were actually made out of leaked code that is now completely outdated in most parts, a lot of these projects that have been in development for a literal decade now are finally tasked with having to port all of their previous code into the new SDK so that it can be released on Steam, where it might actually stand a chance of having a regular player base that keeps the game alive. And so that's what most of the well-known TF2 mods dev teams are working on at the moment. But then there's mods like Gold Rush. So what actually is TF2 Gold Rush? Well, their website says that it's a free source mod for Team Fortress 2 focused on restoring the original atmosphere and presentation of the game as it existed in its earlier years, pulling content from up to 2010, applying a layer of visual polish, and just generally being a launch-era version of the game. In reality though, Gold Rush is a dysfunctional, inaccurate, and very weirdly cherry-picked version of TF2 that removes every quality of life feature that Valve has ever added, and randomly mixes changes from 2009 to 2014. And it's kind of bewildering just how much it manages to do wrong. I'm talking issues that I have never experienced in my life before in another source mod. Anyways, before we get in the match, let's just take a look at the settings, you know? If you're a regular with games made in the source engine, you're probably gonna want to take a look at the console at some point, so let's go enable and open it. You will quickly notice that it doesn't work. Even in game, it doesn't work. That's because every time you boot up the game, you need to rebind the console or else it doesn't open. Oh well, it's mostly a debug feature that we have the habit of using a bit too much. No need to worry just yet. Let's just try changing some of our mouse sensitivity. And that doesn't work either. Specifically, the slider doesn't work. You're gonna have to type in your exact mouse sense for it to work like it's supposed to. Oh, and you're gonna be stuck with mouse acceleration until you do so. So even if you do like the default mouse sensitivity, you're gonna have to do this just to force the game to enable the correct mouse settings. I have never experienced this in another source mod before. Genuinely, how did they break the default source input settings? A lot of people don't run deep checks in their game settings because they don't need to, but I'm a freak who plays with the arrow keys right-handed, so if something's in there that doesn't work, I'm going to find it. Talking about finding things, you might wonder where the advanced settings are in this mod. They're in the multiplayer tab for some reason, but this is where things really take a turn for the strange, because by default, damage markers and hit sounds are disabled, which just makes the game feel like an unresponsive slog of gunfire. They have also removed the auto reload feature, which you can technically re-enable by typing plus reload in the console, but they also removed TF2's reload canceling somehow. So unless you switch weapons or spam all your shots before that reload animation kicks in, you're just gonna be screwed because there won't be any way to click out of it or to stop it from reloading automatically like you're actually able to in in Life TF2. These are such weird things to remove or to like, you know, set as the default, because this just means to me that this is the way they expected people to play the game. This is the intended settings, and I'm sorry to say, but this just feels horrible to play. Sure, Life TF2 settings aren't that great either, but at least they don't stop me from like reload canceling, a game mechanic that's been a thing since forever. And I find this even stranger because this mod very clearly states that it thinks that it's only picked out the best things that TF2 has ever received, and yet these default settings are just the way that they are. Why? Who likes playing the game like this? I'm willing to hear an argument for manually reloading, even though I believe that it just slows down the pace of the fight, but no visual markers, no hit sounds, no kill sounds? Even Life TF2 doesn't start you up like this. My guess as to why the game is like this is that it simply felt more OG and more old to the creators, which is a big warning flag for all the things to come. Let's finally move away from the settings and get to the game. You'll notice that while most people are running stock, some players are in fact carrying other weapons, like the flare gun.
Dude, how does everybody on here already have the flare gun?
Oh, the flare gun? Isn't that like achievement specific or some shit?
Yeah, everything's achievement locked.
That's right, you'll have to get all your weapons back through completing all the achievements again. And they're just tied to the milestones achievements, so, you know, you're just gonna have to grind over 20 achievements per class if you want to have everything again. Which, in all fairness, you know, it's how it worked. That's how these weapons were, you know, introduced to the game. You had to complete the achievements, but it's still not fun. It's still really not fun. Tying weapons to game progress isn't a bad idea, but this just genuinely sucks since there aren't any new achievements. I mean, hell, the target audience for this game has already unlocked all of these. Why wouldn't they just make it track your live TF2 inventory? It does work like that for the hats, all like 5 of them, we'll get to it later, which you need to own in Live TF2 to have access to them in Gold Rush. I mean, seriously, why not just try to make both of them work the same way? Maybe tying cosmetics to achievements would have been more interesting than just limiting your players for like the first 10 hours of gameplay, if they even play the game for that long. Now, you've probably noticed that despite all my complaining, I do in fact have unlocked all the weapons. If achievement hunting is so annoying, then what, did I just like somehow find the patience to do all of this just for a review video that's probably gonna max out at 500 views? Of course not, these idiots just forgot to add an achievement checker to their game, so you can just go in the game's folders and change the gameinfo.txt file to give yourself all the achievements instantly. Now that we got all the red flags out of the way, let's talk about what it's like once you actually get into a match. As long as the game doesn't randomly crash, of course, because it does that quite a lot. I tried playing Team Fortress Israel.
The fucking like, I don't know if this is that.
Come look at my bras.
Let's be bros. I think it crashed again. Are you fucking serious?
This is shocking.
The Steam page for Gold Rush claims that the mod restores and carefully enhances the experience TF2 offered in its early years. They literally say that it has a stronger visual direction, so surely it's gotta be good. And although to most people it looks the exact same, because let's be honest, realistically, TF2 doesn't look that different today than what it did 18 years ago, but in all fairness, they actually did roll back some visual changes when it comes to weapons and view models. Also, instead of dropping ammo packs on death, players now drop their weapons, which have their goofy physics added back to them. Smaller details have been fixed, like Spy's revolver cycles when it's shot, Sniper's shells come out correctly at all times, and Demo's grenade launcher isn't empty anymore. But water still doesn't have its old effects. Pyro's flamethrower has the harsher shadows on the bottom that it used to have, but it's not a lighting effect, it's just baked into the model, which looks a little crap. The maps still feature a ton of live TF2 lighting changes, and worst of all, the Wrangler doesn't give sentries their shield bubble anymore. Now I have no clue if this is because they also removed the health buffs from it, because I genuinely just can't tell. The people who play this mod aren't very good at fighting sentries. They're not very good at playing the game in general. But visually, I guess they've achieved like half of what they promised. But even then, when you tally it all up, the game looks exactly the same as live TF2 in reality. quality. It's just not distinct whatsoever. The only real difference there are, apart from the view models, is that everything is just ever so slightly less saturated and a little darker for some reason. Maybe they did attempt to do something interesting with the shaders, but it just makes parts of the map just look really dark and colorless. And while sure, like, this is somewhat accurate because yeah, TF2 just looked like this always, it is very disappointing after having read that it has a stronger visual direction. Other mods like Pre-Fortress 2 and TF2 Classic, now called TF2 Classified, have made their own lighting shaders for the models where, like, you know, it just makes the whole game look like it was in those old trailers. Sure, it's not accurate, but if you're gonna gas yourself up on having such a unique and brash and bold art direction, at least you should have something to back it up. And sure, they've removed all the hats and it makes all the TF2 players with cataracts think that it has solved the art style and class recognition problems forever. But at the end of the day, my issues remain the exact same, which is that this just feels like playing on a live TF2 community server with a lot of custom rules and visual mods, but with a lot of extra steps and fewer players. Oh, and also, it just runs so much worse somehow. I've seen people run into this issue where the game just seems to stutter for no reason, like your mouse feels sluggish and your movement's delayed by half a second all the time, and the only way I could find to stop the game from doing this was to input a custom launch config to disable controller inputs. So I guess the game just tries to read inputs from a controller that isn't even plugged in or connected to the computer no matter what? I don't know, I might be wrong, but that's what helped me, so either way, that's another issue that they somehow need to find a fix for. My personal theory on why this mod runs so poorly is that they randomly deleted a bunch of post-2010 performance updates at the start of development because, you know, new equals always bad, and they just never went back and figured out a way to put them back in. So yeah, enjoy your game that somehow runs worse even though it has less. Anyways, once you fix that and get into a game, you might be tempted to play Pyro. Don't do that. They tried reverting the Pyro's flame particle system because, you know, we love it because it's old, but they did it completely wrong and now your flames will keep getting completely blocked by any little thing that gets in the way. If there is a wall to your right, you cannot shoot in a straight line anymore. Also, the flames just come out way slower than they should, right? This makes tracking enemies that are moving 5 centimeters away from your face like barely impossible. Thankfully, we can just switch primary weapon and make things a little bit easier for ourselves. Oh right, the only other option is the backburner, which has kept its air blast restriction from like pre-2011, and although I don't like this version of the backburner, it's probably the most accurate thing that this mod has managed to do with its weapons. The weapon selection for this mod is very weird. At first, you would think that they just put in all the weapons we got from 2008 to 2010, but there's actually a lot missing. They kept everything between the Gold Rush and the Sniper vs. Spy update, but then they just decided to skip the Charge and Targe and the Islander from the War update. The only reason I can see why they'd remove those weapons is because the devs just don't like Demonite, and they thought, well, we can stealthily take them out and not have anybody notice, but no dude, now your 2010 era TF2 is inaccurate. Whether you like it or not, those weapons were part of that era of the game. They were part of the same update that brought us the direct hit, the gunboats, and the buff banner, which are in this mod. But that's not all they just chose to not add. TF2 Gold Rush kept the home wrecker from the first community contribution update, but chose to omit the Delocus bar and the pain train. Like, who was gonna have a problem with the pain train? Does the pain train not fit the art style? They just skipped the second community contribution update completely, forgetting the Scotsman Skull Cutter and Tribalman Shiv, and then despite keeping the Wrangler and the Frontier Justice, they just skipped the Gunslinger and the Southern Hospitality completely. Then, they only kept the Eternal Reward from the Manconomy update, and finally, they only kept the Lock and Load and the Olapul Caber from Australian Christmas. TF2 added a lot of weapons pretty quickly. There were way more than 6 items per class, and it's pretty clear to me that the only reason why they would remove all these weapons is because they just didn't like them. There's not a single reason why the pain train should be in this. It's not art style breaking, and it doesn't disrupt the flow of gameplay that Valve had clearly intended. But what I find especially lazy is that they just axed all of these weapons instead of maybe trying to add a change to them. I mean, I'm pretty sure they did that for the Wrangler, but I mean, again, I have no way of actually knowing because people are really bad at fighting sentries in this mod. There's nothing wrong with wanting to change the weapon roster for your mod. Most mods do just that, and they do it well, but if your main thing is to be a somewhat accurate 2000 era TF2 experience, and you don't have things that were in the game at that point in time, it doesn't matter if you claim to incorporate only the best additions. Now you have a massive conflict of interest, and the project's identity doesn't make any sense anymore. Is this the original artistic identity of TF2, or just one person's favorite maps and weapons tier list? Why does Demo Man still have his 2014 sticky bomb nerfs? I would actually like to talk about this mod's map selection, but in all honesty, it just doesn't really matter. I could go on about how their official map pool doesn't make sense, how lame and empty it is at the end of the day, how it's only an unrealistically small range of maps from TF2 that all look orange, brown, and gray, how it's really missing maps like Upward, Thunder Mountain, Cold Front. Hell, they even forgot to add Egypt, but they still decided to keep Frontier, which came after all of them. But it genuinely just doesn't matter because this game doesn't seem to have any official servers from what I can tell, and it's up to the servers to run whatever maps they want, even things that are not in the map pool. The workshop page for this mod is already flooded with a bunch of old maps and official community made ones that people who actually play TF2 were in fact nostalgic for. Most of these servers run the official map pool, sure, but on release there were tons of servers already running stuff outside of it. You can even find the odd achievement map server here and there. I just don't have anything different to say about the map pool than I have to say about the rest of the mod. It's weird, inaccurate. I had a lot of really good nostalgic memories of playing on Egypt. Is the map that great? Is the map a perfect representation of 2010 era TF2? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know, but it's just kind of weird to admit it because it's not the same shades as Dust Bowl. I don't know, I just feel like all of this already reflects my thoughts on this pretty well. Let's move on. I feel as though they went a little too crazy in their vendetta against cosmetics. Since Gold Rush takes your hats straight from your live TF2 inventory, they very easily could have made the selection a little bigger. And look, I understand that the folks who like the hat selection in this mod like it because it keeps these beautiful men shining and glistening with sweat and whatnot. And they're so beautiful and muscular, and I can tell exactly what class it is. Oh, thank God, I know it's an engineer, not a heavy. But even then, I think this catalog is so lazy. I like the soldier stash as much as the next gal, but what, so no stainless pot? No tyrant's helm? No respectless rubber glove? No gibbous? Is the troublemaker's tussle cap just too much to handle for TF2's delicate and so easily destructible art style? Is Scout's entire character design rendered unrecognizable from wearing a normal beanie? Talking about beanies, Pyro's beanie was only removed because of this belief that Pyroland and the Pyro having a sillier side to them just wasn't a part of what Valve intended for the character based on concept art from like 2005 maybe, and therefore anything that doesn't fit the Sigma male agenda is woke and gay and doesn't belong in my game. If you're really deep into the TF2 community, especially on YouTube, you know it. You know there are people who think like that, and I'm not gonna sit here and waste my time arguing against them. Did Valve always intend for the Pyro and Pyroland to have a sillier side to them and whatnot? I don't know, probably not. They probably weren't thinking about that back in like 2004. The game was in development for like 9 years, and who knows how long they spent working on the characters and the story elements. But are we really going to sit here and pretend like Pyroland is a lame or weird and bad addition? Are we really going to pretend like people are misunderstanding Meet the Pyro? No, of course not. This is just really weird boys rule, girls drool logic that they've applied to this like cosmetic selection, all stemming from this weird blimp in the community's like discussion cycles. I mean, look at this selection. They've only kept the serious and militaristic ones. These aren't necessarily the best additions, especially when it comes to cosmetics and hats. It's very objective, and they're there so you can express yourself as a player. You can express your playstyle. If you're a sillier player, you're gonna want to wear sillier hats. And if you're a more serious player, you get to wear the serious ones. But doing it this way just like removes all actual player expression from the game. Like, these hats are just a showcase of, you know, your allegiance to the mod in some weird way. But I don't know, these these are all my thoughts I have on this weird cosmetic collection. I would have just rather they don't add any cosmetics at all. But I'm gonna put on screen right now a list of hats that I think could have easily fit into this mod without angering any of the art style purists in the community. And I don't know, tell me in the comments if you fuck with this at all, if you think this could work. This is not a list of hats that I think are objectively the best that Valve has ever added to the game, or anything like that from the 2010 era, but this is just a list that I think could have easily fit the style that this mod was at least trying to go for, with all the flaws included. Overall, it's pretty clear that I don't like Team Fortress 2 Gold Rush. It's a broken mod that was clearly made out of spite and rushed its release to try and suck up some of the audience that would have gone to other mods that are basically TF2 but old, planned to come out later this year and in 2026. Although I believe 2 other mods came out before this, being like better TF2 and something else, I specifically wanted to review this one because I just felt like the response just made me go insane. Like, a lot of people were glazing the shit out of this, and then I played it being a little bit excited, like this might actually be something, and it was nothing. You're not necessarily in the wrong if you do enjoy playing it, because at the end of the day, it's realistically just TF2 with less maps, less weapons, and basically no hats. And if you're a fan of this particular weapon and map pool, then yeah, this is a version of TF2 you should definitely play. But for me, I would have to review this a 4 out of 10 source mod. And I know last video I said I didn't plan on adding notes to these. I feel like I just have to stick a note to this one because I don't know, man, this felt very wrong to play. It's really just TF2 if Zesty Jesus and Richter over time worked at Valve, and I'm not bringing up these guys for nothing. They were core components as to why this mod was as popular as it was on release, and because of that, the player base that plagues the mod is covered in Hitler particles. I'm not going to waste your time telling you about why racists and weirdos are racists and weirdos. We live in a world. Instead, I'm going to end this video with a real TF2 Gold Rush player moments compilation. Enjoy!
I am the Grand Wizard Man.
You don't think we should, wipe those fuckers off the face of the planet?
I never said we should kill fat people, but we should definitely kill some group of people, but I don't want to elaborate.
You said something. You said something about a certain group of people. What?
Oh, it was a joke. It was a
which
joke.
group are you talking about?
I don't like you because your accent reminds me of like one guy, an Australian guy who's also brown that like tried to scam me way back in the day, and it really pissed me off. So I'm gonna go ahead and not listen to you anymore. I know what you're trying to do.
You fucking faggot!
Holy fuck, Yukon!
What a shame.
Niggas on the move. They're niggas on the move.
Pinky poopy niggers.
Where's your IP address? Please tell me your IP address. Please tell me your IP address.
No, I don't know what's
Where do you live? Tell me where do you live? Where do you live?
Entire team is babies.
Josh, you stupid nigger. Heal me.
You like this mic spam? You know, at first I thought the logo and cover art for this mod were lazy, but then I realized that they couldn't even be bothered to change the title on the main menu to say Gold Rush. After 9 months of development, it's finally here.